We need to be compelled to generosity. Compelled to generosity. How many in here have ever been the beneficiary of generosity? Somebody's generosity. It's amazing, right? I remember when we were setting out to plant this church, somebody did something for me that totally ruined me. It wrecked me for generosity the rest of my life. I will never forget this person the rest of my life, and here's why. You might ask, well, did that person disciple you? Did that person teach a really awesome Bible verse to you? Did that person give you a book or change your mind on some particular issue? No, that person didn't do any of those things for me. Here's what that person did. We were setting out for Austin, Texas to plant a church from Houston. We didn't know how we were going to make things work. We didn't know anything about planting a church hardly. They wrote us a $10,000 check to make this church happen. That's what they did. They demonstrated generosity. We would not be here today if it were not for that person's gift, that person's act of generosity. And I'll tell you, it completely wrecked me what they did. It ruined me. Because let me tell you something about generosity. People cannot resist generosity. They don't understand it because the world simply is not generous. But when they see generosity, it blows their minds. And so I want to ask, what if we as a church, what if we were compelled to be generous? What if we began to show generosity with the people that are around us in our lives? And let me pause and let me say something real quick. I'm not talking about tithing here, okay? We often talk about tithing in the church, and tithing is important. And in fact, you guys are awesome at it. It's great. I mean, you guys are good. You're doing tithing. That's awesome. But I'm not talking about tithing right here. Tithing is like the training wheels for generosity. We're talking about what you do over and above and beyond what you tithe to the local church, okay? I'm talking about generosity. And when you are generous to other people, let me tell you, it blows their mind. I've shared this before, but I used to be a waiter. And I almost didn't come to Christ because I was a waiter and I worked on Sunday afternoons. And you ask any waiter, what is the worst day to be a waiter in the food service industry? They will tell you, bar none. Do I have any waiters in the house? All right, I got a few in here, They will tell you, bar none, Sunday afternoon after church is the worst time to be a waiter. You ask them, when is the best time? They'll say Friday and Saturday nights when everybody's getting hammered. Drunk people are more generous at restaurants than Christians, y'all. There's something wrong with that. I think there's really, really something wrong with that. I worked as a waiter, and on Sunday afternoons, people would come in after church. They'd have all their kids. They'd pour out all the salt and pepper packets, the ketchup bottles, everything. And then when they would leave, they might tip me 10% and leave me a gospel tract telling me how I could become just like them. And I thought, I don't want to become like you. Don't get me anywhere near you. I don't want to be like you because you're not generous. Generosity, y'all. It changes people. The world is not used to generosity. And my God, what if we as a church, what if we stood up and we said, we're going to be generous. We are going to be generous to people. I'll tell you what would happen. We wouldn't need the government. We wouldn't need the government. I know that sounds really radical, but if the church stood up and we began to practice generosity and we took care of the poor and the people who were in need, if we stood up and began to do that, we could fire the government because the poor would be taken care of. We would be taking care of the poor. The church would be able to say, yeah, guys, we got this. We're going to take care of the poor. Y'all worry about defending the country. We're going to take care of the poor because we are going to be generous. We are committed to generosity. It would change the world. So here's my challenge. If you're planning to go out to eat today, some of you are going to be sitting in a restaurant here in the next half hour. And if you're planning on going out to eat today, I want to challenge you to cultivate spiritual fitness in your life. Give your waiter one of the biggest tips you've ever given a waiter before. And watch what happens. And when you give them that generous tip, tell them, God has blessed me so that I can be a blessing to you. Share that with them when you give them the tip. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. I guarantee you that person is going to take that tip. They are going to tell every single waiter who's on staff. They're going to tell everybody they see over the next week. They are going to be talking about the generosity that you demonstrated. Why? Because generosity, people don't understand it. Friends, that is how we change the world. That's how we cultivate spiritual fitness in our lives.